Starting from the age of 35, Miss Zürcher, you have had out-of-body experiences. Would you like to briefly explain again how it all began? Actually, it started when I was still a child, but at that time, people didn't know anything about things like this, and I only experienced it consciously when I was 35, and it happened during a move. Usually, I go to bed at midnight, but this time it was already 2 in the morning. And as soon as I lay down, suddenly I found myself on the ceiling. And thereafter, for 1 hour, I went out of my body, then back into the body. And since I didn't have a clue about these things, I had to get my neighbor out of bed so that I could call my family doctor. And he had just as little clue as I had, but of all things, he recommended a glass of schnapps as his so-called remedy. And in my distress, I drank the whole glass full of schnapps, whereupon I was completely out of it. Yet the schnapps didn't really change anything, and these phenomena have been continuing to this day. During such experiences, you met other entities, both people who were still alive, as well as human beings who had passed away. Can you describe some of those encounters? Well, I have met people in the hereafter I didn't know had died, among them young people. But what comes to my mind now, in retrospect, is that they presented themselves with something hanging down alongside their astral body, something resembling a garden hose. And this so-called garden hose was somehow frayed at the end. And I thought at that time, oh, did they want to make a phone call, but the telephone cable was torn? Now in hindsight, with the knowledge I have since acquired, I know that this was the so-called silver cord, which ruptures the moment the body dies, and the soul moves into the hereafter, leaving the physical body behind. And these young people wanted to show me that this silver cord had torn. But on later astral travel, I saw and experienced the silver cord on myself. So I know that it exists. The so-called silver cord is the clear interface as well as the connection of both bodies, the spirit body and the physical body. And when this silver cord is broken, the physical body dies. You said that when you met other entities, you touched them. That is, people who were still alive, but were just only traveling with their spirit bodies. Yes, that's how it is. I met a doctor once who was also doing astral travel and whom I touched because I was curious, of course, about what it feels like. Well, it felt like rubber. And everyone I met over there and whom I touched felt a bit like rubber as well. But those ones I met that way, they didn't know that, of course. Once a friend of mine got thirsty at night, so she went to the kitchen, she told me later, and when she came out of her kitchen and went back to her bedroom, she said she would have walked through me. So the physical body is easily able to pass through the ethereal body without feeling obstacles. And that's how it is when I am out at night in my spirit body. I can go through walls. I can go through windows. And I don't feel it at all. Once I had a very funny experience when I was living in Lugano, high above the lake. And in front of the bedroom, there was a terrace that used to be my starting place. Strictly speaking, the railing of the terrace was my takeoff site for traveling into the beyond. And one day, when I once again was standing on the railing, looking down, I saw a woman standing in the street, in a spirit body. She spoke to me in French, saying, "Vous parlez français?" meaning, "Do you speak French?" However, in Lugano, you should know, Italian is usually spoken. Thereupon, all I could say was, "Oui, oui," and I was gone back to my bed. So I looked at my watch. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and not even a minute later, the phone rang. This time, in reality, I picked up the receiver and heard a voice saying to me, "Vous parlez français?" Now, that's again one of those things where I would love to ask scientists what this is all about. Well, the lady actually felt disturbed by the faucet in the bathroom that didn't let her sleep. But the fact that she said the same thing to me in the spirit body as she did in her physical body, even in French, is a mystery to me. Let me go back to your describing touching other beings, and that the spirit body corresponds to the earthly body. That's right. I have seen these beings in their spirit body, which is a complete double of the physical body. And they were all dressed as they normally are dressed in everyday life on Earth. They are just simply doubles. Just like there is the same city of each individual of our earthly cities over there. I have experienced that too. Miss Zürcher, you told me in our preliminary talk that you met the so-called Schnapps doctor again in the hereafter. Oh yes, I would also like to relate this encounter. One morning I woke up seeing the head of this doctor's son very big before me, and tears were streaming down his cheeks. I didn't know the child personally. I only saw him once in the doctor's office. At the same time, it occurred to me that this very day was my laundry day, after all. I went to the laundry room because there, in my spiritual vision, I had seen my neighbor hanging up her laundry. Well, I went to the laundry room anyway, and lo and behold, the neighbor was there hanging up her laundry on my laundry day. Well, okay. She said to me, "Now we no longer have a doctor. Our doctor is gone. He had killed himself. He had committed suicide by giving himself an injection." Years later, during one of my journeys into the hereafter, I opened a door and I saw in a large hall the Schnapps doctor as he lived and breathed, working together with other people. They had test tubes and things that they obviously wanted to explore something with. And he turned around and really happily smiled at me as he had recognized me. I was watching for a while when I saw a table further over, behind which a figure appeared. And I said to myself, "But that's Miss Shirahama Mitsuo." I didn't get to know her personally in earthly life, but she was the friend of an acquaintance of mine, and she told me at that time about someone named Shirahama. But I also asked myself, how can I recognize someone in spirit whom I haven't seen or met at all in earthly life? Then I called the acquaintance of mine and asked her how Miss Shirahama was doing, whereupon she informed me that she had died some time ago. This is yet another proof that one knows much more in spirit than in the earthly life. How can I recognize a woman I have never seen before. So in the spirit worlds, you were also facing that there are some deceased that are working there. Yes, that's right. And moreover, that they have houses. And thus they also have homes. They are living there just as we do here. Of course, it also depends on the sphere they belong to, you see. For example, I once took someone with a dubious character, whom I knew on earth, with me on a journey at night, showing him how spirit beings of the lower spheres are housed in the other world. And that's not so fun. And in this context, a couple of warmongers came to my mind, because if they knew where they would end up, they would think twice about their conduct. Is it possible for you to describe these lower spheres? Well, first of all, everything is much darker than in the normal astral realms. The lower astral worlds are just simply meant for people who are still at the beginning of their personal evolvement. I mean, if here on Earth someone starts a war, is killing other people who have done nothing to him at all, then that's an inferior character. And those ones, in particular, are being housed in the lower astral worlds. And there they are given both the opportunity to learn as well as the opportunity to reincarnate, so they can make amends for the mistakes in previous lives. Is it possible for you to describe the brighter spheres in more detail, things you saw there? There are many levels, gradations, but most people who cross over into the other world find themselves in a sphere of peace and glory. Nature over there is full of flowers and colors, and there is no one walking around in black. It really is a wonderful sphere. And I can still remember very well the higher spheres where there was only spirit and brightness there. Well, in Italian, one would say bianco latte, so it's a spirit-permeated white. And everything is so supple. The clothing that they wear is all so light, super light. And every now and then, there are also slightly translucent colors there. But these are also very bright. And in those spheres, I didn't see houses or anything else Earth-like at all, not at all. Miss Zürcher, over the years, you have tried to obtain proof of an out-of-body existence. You were looking for proof of whether things like that really exist. Yes, that's right. You know, I'm a very down-to-earth human being, and when I experience things like that, I try to verify them. My last astral journey led me to Ischia, and when I was walking through the small alleys there, I knew instinctively that I was in Ischia. So I saw then a kind of billboard pillar there with the name of a hotel written on it. And that's because I was looking for this hotel in Ischia, and I found it. The next morning, when I was back from this astral journey, I thought to myself, my goodness, now I have to travel to Ischia to verify all this. But it occurred to me that that was a bad idea, because after all, I had internet. So I Googled it on the net, and there indeed I found the name of the same hotel as well as pictures of the hotel. And I also found exactly the place where I was sitting on precisely the same chair at the same table that night. And I felt exceedingly happy about that. As I said before, I was quite desperate because there was nobody to whom I could recount all these phenomena. Then, as luck would have it, one evening I was watching the Austrian TV channel, where 3 professors were discussing these phenomena that I have been experiencing for years. Furthermore, they were talking about a congress in Innsbruck. I can tell you, I have never packed my suitcase so quickly, and the next day I traveled straightway to Innsbruck. But hundreds of people who wanted to attend this congress were already there. And when I entered the entrance hall, that very professor was consulting with the TV people about something. However, there were so many people there. How could I get hold of this man whom I actually didn't know? And I'm rather short in stature, so I found a staircase landing on which I placed myself at a certain distance. And so he happened to look straight at me, and so I waved madly at him. Then he said goodbye to the TV people, and believe it or not, approached me and said, "Well, now tell me everything." And from that moment on, I was together with him and his wife for the entire duration of the Congress, also at noon and in the evening, and he recorded everything I had experienced in the past few years. And as a result, he even came from Vienna to Bern to do experiments with me. And thereafter, I was completely convinced that in this outer shell, there is a spirit living that is directing everything and actually has all knowledge. And Dr. Huber did the following experience with me. I had to put my arm on the table, sort of like this, and he pricked my arm with a needle at this particular spot. So I said, "Ouch!" I felt the pain. Thereupon, he made some stroking movements. And again, he pricked my arm in the same place with the same sharp needle. But I didn't feel anything at all. Then he used the same needle to prick into a site next to my arm, that is, into the air. And I felt the pain again. Ouch! Because through his stroking movements, he transported my spiritual arm outside of my body, but next to my physical arm. And this means that without my spiritual arm, my physical arm is dead. It no longer feels anything, because senses and life in general are over there in spirit. I am so thankful to Dr. Huber for demonstrating this to me, because it convinced me even more, because when I leave my body, my consciousness is completely present in this spirit body. And in this way, then also in this before mentioned mental puncture site, and it doesn't have to be the body at all. So, life and consciousness can be found in the spirit body and not in the physical body. Absolutely, absolutely. I experienced it myself when I was out of my body. And in this state, everything you could have done with my body, I would not have felt it, because I wasn't in the body. On the other hand, when I was out of the body, I had all the options. So I once visited my ex-husband in his new apartment where I had never been before. Well, there I saw everything. He was living in a very modern penthouse apartment, and what was funny about it is that there was a simple wire mesh fence stretched in front of the terrace. And this is just funny, because this indicates that someone owning such a comfortable apartment has a need to be better equipped to deal with fear by means of such a wire mesh fence. I found it great in the spirit body, because in this state of being, I put my spirit legs in the wire mesh fence and let myself fall backwards. My husband was living on the 6th floor, so I then let myself fall down backwards, rocking back and forth, and later on, before I actually got there, I was curious whether I would find this wire mesh fence again. And indeed, it was there. But this time, I didn't put my legs in it because it would have been too dangerous. Well, these are all somehow small proofs, you see. At least they are proving the existence of the astral body, the spirit body, and real life. Miss Zürcher, in your opinion, how common is it for other people to have such out-of-body experiences? I don't know exactly. Normally, every human being gets out of the body at night a bit, because the spirit body in turn gathers the energies and forces to be able to nourish the physical body. However, nourishment alone, absorbed by the body, can't do everything. The body also needs the spirit, and that's why we sleep. Normally, astral journeys stop at the age of about 60 years old. But at my age, I am a bit older, and I have already experienced the Second World War, haven't I? I have already gotten to know life from the other side. And so today, I am still doing astral travel. But while doing so, I'm not allowed to be aware of what I'm doing, because in this case, I would never come back. Definitely not. But I'm still traveling and learning over there, because over there are my wise people, if I may put it that way, by whom I am taught. And I am also looking for wise people in earthly life, with whom I could exchange ideas. Well, now when you come back from an astral travel and you are a bit advanced in age, you feel it, because instead of my usual normal blood pressure, it goes up a bit when I have come back from astral travel. And it then takes about 2 hours for the blood pressure to return to normal. At least I then feel from my blood pressure that I was traveling astrally during the night. It's the sign that I had been traveling. When you were out of your body seeing people, were you sometimes seen by these people also? Can you give a few examples? It was above all my daughter who saw me, because she was in the same apartment with me. And when a mother leaves her body, what is the first thing she does? She checks on her child. My child was 11 at the time, and she was the one who saw me. And first, she was really screaming with fear, because her mother was standing before her and at the same time was lying over there in another bed. And of course, this henceforth happened very many times. The next day, she told me what clothing I was wearing, and that the whole apartment was very bright. Once she was in a training camp in another part of Switzerland, and there she was in one room together with a training partner, where I then appeared to her. And the room would have been brightly lit, she said. But when the other girl was coughing, everything disappeared all of a sudden. And this is what she experienced with me. And over time, it was quite normal for her. Were there any other people who have seen you? Just let me think a moment. Well, yes. Someone once asked me if I often visited strangers in their room at night, and this was a little embarrassing. However, I somehow couldn't control this, because I didn't expect it, you understand. I didn't intend to visit this person or that person at night. I used to always let everything happen. In the practical sense, I was an instrument, and so it sometimes happened that I showed up somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be, but this settled down over time. Would it be important for mankind to know more about such spiritual things? Yes, indeed. You see, I do have a task with all these experiences. And my task is to take away people's fear of dying so that they know I was allowed to be here. I was allowed to prove myself. I was allowed to learn. Here on earth, the body is aging. When the body just simply doesn't work very well anymore, you return to your spiritual home, where you get a chance for a reincarnation, for a rebirth, thereby learning new things again. And in the process, you develop further and further and further. And that's also why there are the different dimensions that Burkhard Heime and certainly also Albert Einstein have calculated, and which I have already seen from time to time. And once human beings know that they consequently will be living completely differently, then everyone would indeed present themselves authentically due to their state of consciousness or their state of intelligence. And whatever the state of being may be, they cannot change the way they are for the time being. And the reason for this is that they are still learning, and they are also receiving the opportunity to learn. Miss Zürcher, I thank you for this interview.